Dear students, welcome in the class of AME Final, subject English Literature, paper 2nd, 19th century English Literature. Today's topic is G.M.Hopkins' poem Carrion. I am Dr. Sumer Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government Lohia College, Churu. So, students, today we will study G.M.Hopkins' poem Carrion. As we know that G.M. Hopkins is a religious poet and he was a clergyman by profession. So he expressed blind faith in God in all his poems, and all his poems are regarded as the religious poems, and he is a religious poet. G.M. Hopkins wrote all his poems in the form of Petrarchan sonnet. So the poem Carrion is also a Petrarchan poem, and being a Petrarchan sonnet, it is divided into two parts. The first part, that is comprises of 8 lines, that is called octave, and second part is called sestet. So in this poem, G.M. Hopkins, being a religious poet, says that in human world there are sorrows, suffering, despair, etc. So a person should take a lesson from the problems and the miseries of human life, and a person should learn to derive pleasure from our misfortune, pleasure from despair and problems, and he should take the lesson of tolerance, and a person should not make a complaint against God in his adverse situation or in his problems, because God is always merciful, God is always kind to human beings, and God is the creator of this world, God is the father of this humanity. He has created this world, and God is always kind and merciful towards human beings. So we must not complain against God. We must not think that God is imposing problems, tragedies and adverse conditions into our life, because God never imposes adverse conditions in our life. God always kind to us, and if there are the problems, if there are the adverse situations at some time in our life, then we should endure them, we should tolerate them, and we should come over these adverse situations, and we must be thankful to God, and we must not complain against God. So in this poem, the poet teaches a moral lesson to the human being, that we must not be angry, we must not think against God of any type, any kind. So God is always merciful to us. So this poem is written when G.M. Hopkins himself was suffering from the fits of depression, and he was suffering from disappointment, despair. So after the fits of depression, he also felt disappointed. So this poem is written after the several fits of depression or casual fits of depression which G.M. Hopkins would suffer in his life, because he was the victim of this situation. So Carrion. So Carrion means carrion. The main word is carrion. So carrion is the name, or we can say carrion means putrid or decayed flesh or dead flesh. And in this poem, the poet says that a crow, or we can say a carrion crow or a bird, that eats the dead flesh of the creatures, and then the crow or the bird survive, and the bird feed upon the dead flesh. It means the dead flesh gives energy, the dead flesh gives, we can say, satisfaction and joy to that bird. In the same way, a human being into the adverse condition or into misfortune should start to derive pleasure from the despair, pleasure from the problem or misery. So this kind of a lesson of tolerance is taught in this poem. So when G.M. Hopkins himself suffered from the fits of despair, then he wrote this poem, and he says in this poem, "Not, I will not, Carrion comfort, despair not feast on thee." So he says that not I will not, because the poet says that I have come to the last point of my tolerance, to the last point of my we can say capacity of tolerance and endure, that now I am not able to endure and tolerant now I can't tolerate more than the condition of despair, more than the condition of misery. So he says, no, not I will not, double negative is there, not I will not Carrion comfort. It means I can't enjoy the Carrion comfort, I can't enjoy upon my misfortune, upon my dead flesh of the body, because in misfortune and in adverse condition or in depression and despair, the person feels himself as a dead. So he says that I am not able to feed more upon this dead condition of myself, this disappointed or this miserable condition of myself. So he says that no, I will not enjoy the comfort from my despair, because despair is an adverse condition and a person should take enjoy from this despair. But he says that I have totally tired, or I have come at the last point of my capacity to endure or to tolerate despair. Not feast on thee. He says that now I am not able to feed on thee, and now I am not able to derive any pleasure from this despair. Not untwist, not untwist, double negative, it means twist. I have been twisted by the misery, and he says that my body is completely twisted, and he says that I am not no further able to tolerate any more the problem or the despair or the misfortune or adverse condition. Slack they may be, slack means loose. So he says that my capacity or the strings of my capacity may be slack, they may be almost have broken, and they have no power to tolerate more despair. So my body has given the we can say has left the capacity of endure, my body has given the answer. These last strands of man, so last strands, last we can say capacity, last power of body has given the answer, or we can say the body has given the we can say that the body has not in the position to tolerate any more the despair. In me, or most weary, he says, in my personality, in my body, the last strands or the last capacity of the body has expired, or that has we can say that destroyed. So he says that in my body, in my personality, there is no capacity to feed on despair, and I am not in position to take enjoy from despair. So he says that it is the last words of my tolerance. Cry I can no more. He says that cry I can no more at this time. It means this is the very miserable condition of the poet, and he is suffering from the fits of depression, and he first of all he started to enjoy the fits of depression, he started to enjoy the depression and disappointment, and he started to learn or derive pleasure from the despair. But he says that now I can no more, now I can no more, now he says that I can no more. I can, he says, I can one thing, or I can do one thing, can something hope, and that is the hope. He says that now I can only do one thing, that is the hope, that there will be good days in my life. So I can hope for the betterment in my life, I can hope for the good days in my life. So in this way we can say that the poet says that his capacity of body has expired, his capacity of body has finished totally, and he is not able to feed on despair, he is not able to enjoy or derive pleasure from despair. And he says that I can do at this time only one thing, that is the hope, that there will be good days in my life, there will be happiness in my life. So he says that I can do only one thing, that is hope. wish day come, he says that I can wish only that good days will come in my life, or the joy and happiness will come in my life one day, not choose not to be. He says that now the condition is that not choose not to be. He says that to be or not to be, the question has come of to be or not to be, to live or not to live. He says that now I have no capacity to choose to live in this world. So he says that I am not interested in this life because the life is full of sorrow, suffering, misery, etc. So after the several fit of depressions, the poet has totally broken, and he says that he has no capacity to tolerate any more depression or any more misery in the life. So he says that I can only do one thing, that is hope, and he is not interested to be in this world or to live anymore in this world. So this is the we can say that the miserable condition of the poet. But oh thou terrible, but oh thou terrible. So the poet addresses God. Thou, he says that oh God, he addresses to God because G.M. Hopkins believes in the mercy of God. He believes that God is the father of this world, God is the creator of this world. So why God is so cruel to me, why God is so rude to me, and why God is not merciful towards me? So he makes a complaint in this octave part against God, that God is so cruel to me, God is so unkind to me, and why God is so cruel to me. So he says that oh thou terrible, you are so terrible, you are so cruel to me. So due to the depression, due to the over depression, and due to the intolerable or pitiable condition of the poet, he says that oh God, you are so terrible, you are so horrible, terrible, cruel to me. Why wouldst thou rude on me? Why wouldst thou rude on me? Why you are so rude, so cruel, so unkind, so merciless towards me? So the poet, being a religious poet, makes a complaint against God, that why God is so cruel to me, why God has become so merciless to me, because the poet has lost his all hope of good days, and he says that now can I only make one thing, that is hope of the good days. I can wish that there will be good days in my life, there will be again happiness in my life, and except it I can do nothing in this world. I can no more cry, even I can no more cry out of my misery, out of my pitiable condition. He says that why are you so rude, why are you so cruel to me? Thy ring world right. He believes that God runs this world with the right toe, or with the toe of the right foot. So with the toe of right foot, the God controls this world, or God runs this world. So he says that why have you crushed me with your that toe of right foot, or why you have crushed me under your foot, by which you run this world? So thy ring world right foot rock. So he says that why has your right foot has crushed me like a rock? Lay a lion limb against me. He says that why God has become as terrible, as cruel to me, and he compares the cruelty of God like the lion's jaw, and he says that like a lion you have opened your jaw towards me to engulf me or to eat me. So he says that why you have become so terrible towards me. So this is the complaint of G.M. Hopkins against God, because G.M. Hopkins has totally broke down after the several fits of depression, and first of all he started to derive pleasure from the fits of depression, from the misery, but later on he says that it is the last stage of my tolerance, it is the last stage of my strength, or the strength of my body. Now the strands of my body are totally slack, and they have no power to tolerate any more the misery, or to tolerate any more the sorrow, or the despair. Scan with, he says to God that like a opened jaw, you are looking towards me, you scan me, and you looking with a fear towards me, and like a roaring lion, you are looking towards me with darksome devouring, with darksome means with terrible, devouring means engulfing, eating eyes, my bruised bones, my bruised, my twisted bones, because my bones, my personality is always twisted due to the sorrow, suffering, etc. And he says that God has crushed under his right foot my body, so my body is totally bruised, my body is totally twisted, and my body is totally crushed. So he says that why do you looking towards a terrible line, looking towards a very fearful line towards my bruised bones, and fan, and you want to fan, you want to we can say fan, or he says that you want to make me run away, you want to make me fly away with the power. Oh, in terms of a tempest, in terms of tempest means in the power of tempest, in the power with the power of wind, you want to fan me, you want to fly over me, or we can say you want to throw me with the power of tempest, me heaped there, and I am lying as a heap on the ground. So he says that my body is totally bruised, and there is no power in my body is totally crushed under your cruelty, and my body is lying on the earth like a heap of flesh. So he says that why do you are so terrible, why do you are so cruel towards me? Me frantic, the poet says that myself is so frantic, so fearful, so feared, and he says that I am so under the pressure of fear and under the pressure of terror, and being a frantic one, being a panic one, I wanted to avoid thee. He says that I wanted to avoid thee. Thee means here God. So the poet addresses to God that I wanted to avoid your glimpse, I want to avoid you, because I am so fearful to you, and I am so panic due to your cruelty. So I wanted to avoid you, I wanted to I have no capacity to face God, and I want to flee, run away from the glimpses of God, and the poet is not able to face God. So in this way, in this octave part, the poet expresses the very sorrowful condition, very pitiable and miserable condition of himself after the suffering of several fits of depression. So in this way, the poet says that this is a very pitiable, this is a very miserable condition of myself, and God is not kind to me, God is cruel to me, like a lion that has opened its jaw towards a victim. So in this way, in this part, the poet is so panic, the poet is so hopeless, and he says that God is so cruel. So this is the development of thought in this part. Next part is the sustate, and the poet will present the solution of this problem in the sustate, and in the sustate he will realize the truth that God is not merciful towards me, God is kind to me, and in all the sorrows, suffering, we learn a lesson of tolerance, we learn a lesson of humanity. So in this sustate part, he says why. In the sustate part, there is a turn in the thought, and the poet says that why I should not see God, why I should avoid God, why I should flee away from God, because God is our Father, God is our Creator. We should move towards God, we should meet to God, we should see the face of God, because God is always full of mercy. So he says that why, that my chaff might fly. He says that if I will face God, or if I will move towards God, then my chaff means the fodder, the useless material, and we can say the why says the evil, and we can say the ills of my personality, my body will might fly, or they will fly away if I will face God. So he says that I should not avoid God, I should not run away from God, I should face to God, I should move towards God, because God will remove the useless material, God will remove the evil and ills from my personality with his power, and all the sins, all the crime, all the we can say that bad qualities or the chaff will fly away my personality and I will be totally purified. My grain lie and my qualities, my virtues will remain into my body. So as we trace the chaff from our grains, so grains are lying on the ground and the chaff run away with the power of wind or with the power of thresher. In the same way, God is also a thresher, and God acts like a thresher. All the vices, all the, we can say that, unwanted material, sin, crime, etc. Removes from our personality, our character, and only the qualities and the virtues are remained in our personality. So that's the good quality of God. Therefore, we should move towards God, we should face God, and we should believe in the mercy of God. We should not run away from God, we should not complain against God. Clear and clear, clear and clear. In this way, my qualities, my virtues will be pure and clear in my personality. I will be totally purified if I will face God. Nay, in all that toil, nay, in all that toil and that coil, toil and coil here refers to that labor, in that struggle, or in that we can say that task, in that effort, if I will face God. So in this task, in this effort, I will be totally purified. And in all coil, coil means all the problems, all the miseries, all the, we can say that adversities and adverse conditions, misfortunes, seems I kissed the road. So all the adverse conditions which we think that this is the punishment, so that punishment is the nearness and dearness of God, and God touches us with his rod of punishment. So in this way, we have kissed, or I have kissed the touch of that rod. So in this way, we enjoy the nearness and dearness of God. So the poet says that all the toil, all the sorrows, suffering, problems, all the coil, all the miseries, and we can say the adverse conditions, and all the problems which we think that all these are the problems in our life, all these are the, we can say that, puzzles in our life. So in these all toil and coil, in these all puzzles, in these all problems and adverse conditions, we enjoy the rod of God. We enjoy the touch of God through that rod of punishment. So that is the nearness and dearness of God. If God gives us punishment, and rather we enjoy the touch of the hand of God, because in the hand of God there is the rod of punishment. And if we enjoy that punishment, if we receive that punishment, then through that rod we enjoy the touch of God's hand. It means we enjoy the nearness and dearness of God. So the problems, the adverse conditions, the disappointment, despair are not the punishment, they are the fruits of God's mercy. They are better for us. So in this way, we enjoy the touch of the rod of God, we enjoy the touch of the hand of God. Oh my heart low. And the poet says, oh my heart low. Low means full of happiness. My heart is puffed with happiness. So in this way, by receiving the touch of God's hand, by getting the touch of God's rod, the poet says that my heart is full of joy, full of happiness, because all the vices, all the ills, all the evils, and the useless things from my personality, character has been removed, and all the qualities are left into my personality, and I am totally purified. In this way, I am purified as well as I touch the nearness and dearness of God, and the touch the hands of God. Stole joy and lapped strength and stole joy. My heart lapped means full of joy. My heart received, got joy and stole joy, and in this way I have stolen joy from the hands of God, from the rods of God, by receiving the punishment given by God, or receiving the adversities. So the adversities, the misfortunes, the tragedies, problem, disappointment, despair, all are the fruits of God. These are the fruits of the mercy of God. Our heart is filled with joy, happiness, etc. when we touch the rod of God, or when God touch with that rod of punishment to us. Would laugh, my heart would laugh. Cheer, my heart will be happy, full of cheer, full of joy. Cheer whom though, and then the poet says that to whom I should be cheer, to whom I should be grateful, to whom I should be thankful for this happiness, for this blessings of God, for this purification of my personality by God. So to whom I should be thankful? The hero. I should be thankful to that hero or God who has purified my personality, who has provided, we can say, joy, happiness to me through the rod of punishment. The hero whose heaven handling flung me, whose heaven handling flung me. It means the poet says that should I be grateful, should I be thankful to that hero or God who has flung me, who has beaten me with his rod, or who has given me the punishment, or the hero who has foot trod me, who has crushed me with his right foot. Because it is believed that with the right foot or with the toe of right foot, God runs this world, God governs this world, God controls this world with the toe of the right foot of God. So the poet says, to whom I should be thankful, to whom I should be grateful for my purification of life, for the blessings of God. So he says that should I be thankful to the hero whose foot has trod me, whose foot has crushed me or given me punishment, or that fought him or me, or I should be thankful to or grateful to myself, to me, that fought against God, because I have tolerated, I have endured all the sorrows, suffering, misfortune, etc. And he says that myself is also great person, myself was also bold person, that I have tolerated all the punishment, I have faced God, or I have fought against God in all these miseries and sorrows, suffering. So he says, to whom I should be thankful? Should I thankful to God, or should I thankful to myself, because I have gone through all these problems and miseries which have been given by God? Oh, which one? Oh, which one I should be thankful, or which one I should be grateful, or to whom I should say thanks for my purification, for the blessings of God? Is it each one? Should I thankful to each one, to God as well as to myself? So he says that should I be thankful to each one? He says that I should be thankful to God as well as I should be thankful to myself also. That night here is the symbol of the adverse time, the sorrow, suffering, misfortune. So he says that time of sorrow, suffering, that adverse time, that year, that period of adverse time of now done darkness. He says that the period of darkness, that period of night, or the darkness of that night has passed away. Has done means that passed away, and I have recovered from all these miseries, sorrows, suffering, and I have recovered from all those false notions that God was cruel to me, God was so merciless to me. Now he says that my vision is clear, my thought is clear, that God was not merciful to me, merciless to me, God was not cruel to me, God was merciful to me, God was kind to me, and I must be thankful to God. So he says that night, that period of adversity, that period of sorrow, suffering has passed away, and now I am in positive condition, now I am in the position of prosperity, I am not in the condition of adversity. So the time has passed, that night has passed, that darkness of that night, that sorrow, suffering, and the downward position has passed. I wrestling with my God, my God. He says that I was a very foolish person, I was a rash person, I was a very stupid person, that I wrestled. Wrestling means I fought, I wrestle against my God, oh my Father, or my God. So he says that I was a very foolish person, I was very rash person, innocent person, that I fought against my Father, I fought against God, my God. So he says that now I have realized the fact, now I have realized the truth, that I should not be against God, I should not be angry against God, I should not make any kind of complaint against God. So it was my mistake, it was my fault that I have complained against God and I was against God. So he says that now I have realized the truth and my heart is purified, and now there are the virtues, qualities are in my heart, and my heart is totally purified and I am totally okay at this time. So he says that my notions, concepts are totally cleared at this time, and in all those sorrows, suffering, in all those adverse conditions which I thought those were adverse conditions, I got blessings of God, I got the nearness, dearness of God, and therefore I am thankful to God, and I am also thankful to myself that uh, uh, I have go through I have go through that period, and the period is past. So he says that now I am thankful to my God, I am thankful to my God. So in this way, this poem is also again a religious poem, and we can say this is also again a religious Petrarchan sonnet. And in this poem we have also learned a lesson that a man or a human being must be obliged to God. A human being must be grateful, thankful to God, because God is our Father, God is our Creator, God has created this world, God never gives any problem to us, God always gives blessings to us, we always receive blessings and kindness of God, and God always shows mercy and benevolence towards humanity. Sometimes due to our innocence, due to our stupidity, due to our foolishness, we think and we start to think that God is cruel to us. God has given me so many adversities, failure, despair, disease, etc. But those failure, despair, disease, adverse conditions are our best teacher, and they are our prosperous condition, because we learn so many things, we learn so many qualities, we learn so many good things during that period, and therefore we must be thankful to God always. So in this way we have studied the very important poem of G.M. Hopkins entitled Carrion Comfort. So this carrion is the name of a bird, and that bird feeds on the dead flesh. It means from dead flesh the bird enjoys joy. In the same way, a human being also should start derive pleasure from despair, because despair is the result of sorrow, suffering, misery, tragedies, etc. So we must not complain against God. We should learn to derive pleasure from adverse conditions also, because adverse conditions are not the long lasting. After some time the adverse condition passes and we are in prosperous condition, we are in positive condition. So we must be thankful to God for all these things. Thank you very much for today's patience listening, and in the next time we will study the another poem. Thank you very much.